Ladies and gentlemen, welcome once again to Packernet Podcast. I am your host and resident panelist, as always, Ryan Schlipp. Check us out online, packernet.com. Find me on Twitter, pack_data. Well, I woke up today, immediately grabbed my phone because I'm ready for any moment when I'm not prepared. You know, you just, as soon as you look, there it is. There's the news we've all been waiting for. And sure enough, there was something waiting for me. And so, I'm a little tired. I'm not really thinking. I'm like, well, there's your answer. There you go. So it looks like Matt LaFleur is staying. And I woke up and I go brush my teeth, get up, get my coffee going. And I kept thinking about it. I'm like, wait a minute. Let me think about this for a second. And I started, and again, the problem I have with all of this is I'm very concerned that I have to be careful what I say because it may be old news and I'm spending a lot of time talking about something that's already been resolved. But I don't think it's going to, just based on the way this is being laid out. I don't know. But if you don't know, let me find what the heck I'm looking for here so I can tell you what I'm talking about. There was a tweet from Mr. Schefter, and I've made my opinion of him known. Packers now expected to try to work out a deal in the coming days to keep head coach Matt LaFleur in Green Bay, per sources. And again, I woke up and I was like, well, there you go. There's your answer. And it's like, well, but there's a couple caveats in there, but it sounds like they've decided they're going to keep him, right? That's kind of the plan. But again, the more I thought about it, the more I thought, what exactly did we learn here? So let me just take you through my thought process based on, I put this out on social media already, but here's I'm trying to think of the total possible options. What could this possibly mean? Number one, they had their pre-meeting meeting to say, don't worry, we're not going to just outright fire you. We're going to continue with our plan of keeping you. But we're not doing that today, so why don't you come back in a couple days, and then we'll work on that. And then that was the end of, because they had a meeting to say we're not firing you, but come back in a couple days when we may decide we can't come to a deal and then fire you. That doesn't make a ton of sense to me that would have happened. I don't think that decision, I don't think that meeting happened, which means I don't think policy told Matt LaFleur, don't worry, we're not going to fire you, right? I mean, I could be wrong. Maybe they did have a pre-meeting meeting. Maybe Matt was like having heart palpitations. Maybe he was like having a medical emergency and policy came in and he's like, bro, listen, we're not going to fire you. Just calm down and let's see if we can work out a deal, and if we can't, then you write your own ticket, you go somewhere else, but chill out, okay? Just relax. But like everything else, I try to work in the realm of what makes the most sense. And to me, that does not make the most sense. It makes more sense that meeting has not happened. So what other possibilities could there be? Well, it's possible that Schefter got new information from the top, that he was able to weasel his way into policy's heart, I guess, or somebody in his office, and get direct information that is new information. The problem I have with that, number one, is that I just don't think that would happen. Policy is not going to get out in front of them. I mean, first of all, this is, they don't want anyone to know before Matt LaFleur. That is really terrible policy, and not a good way to run an organization, right? You don't do stuff like that. You don't tell the media and then have a meeting a day or two later with the person and tell them what's going on. I also think that it would be weird that Schefter was able to get new information, and that new information is essentially the exact same information we already knew. This is a verbatim tweet that we got from Ian prior to the game, right? Remember, Ian said they're going to have a meeting in the coming days to determine try to work out a deal, right? We already knew that. We were all just wondering if maybe this was going to impact that meeting. But as far as new information, this is a verbatim tweet to what we already heard from Ian Rapoport. More on that in a minute. The only other thing I could really think, which is the thing that makes the most sense to me at this point, is C, which is that he is re-reporting what we already knew from Ian Rapoport and put now in the tweet when he wrote Packers now expected to try to work out a deal. He re-reported the same news with now in the post as though it's new info so he can get clicks, which is not something that is above Adam Schefter, either because he just didn't know and he got this and was like, oh, I got to tweet this out. He didn't know that we already knew that, or just, again, because he knew that this would get massive play right at the moment that Packer fans, and this is the story. Everyone's talking about it. And if he can just put this out there, boy, he's gonna get a big old fat Twitter paycheck for that one. The old X checks, you know what I mean? Just slap a per sources on there, which isn't surprising. It's entirely possible that his source is somebody in Packers media relaying to him what they learned from Ian Rapoport that he then is relayed to the people who think that Adam Schefter is saying something new when in fact he's not. And the biggest thing to support my thesis, the thing that I think is the most true, is the fact that Tom Pelissero quote tweeted Adam Schefter and said, as was reported by Ian Rapoport days ago, the Packers are expected to work out a deal, which I think is Ian Rapoport probably talking to Pelissero going, look at this freaking douchebag stealing my tweet as though it's new information. And Pelissero's like, don't worry, bro, I got you. Because Ian's not going to come out and start a beef because he's not that way. So Pelissero's going to go out and do it for him and be like, yeah, Ian said this days ago, dude. Cool. Anyways, that is to say, look, at this point, I have to believe that on some level, possibly this is new information. Most people seem to be drifting that way, and I can't tell if it's, even like some of the local media, if that's because they know something also, or if it's just because they're kind of giving Schefter some credit that he knows something, or whatever the case may be. It has to push me in the direction of, back to the other way. But I don't know. I really don't. I know everybody's very, very angry right now that it seems like LaFleur is coming back again. I think at the end of the day, and I know a lot of people will not agree with me on this, you take a couple days, you get upset that the path that you want taken is not being taken, and then we get behind the team and we rally. I will say, though, from my perspective, this has not been solved. I think we are still back to square one, and that is, how is that meeting going to go? I think the maybe the only other thing that we could, I don't know, man. I just trying to think of how this could maybe move the needle, and the only thing I can really think of, aside from, again, A or B being true, is that Schefter kind of reconfirmed the point after the game, but even the way he phrased this makes it sound like he just didn't know that this was already a thing. But still, I mean, I guess it's the reason I don't really believe that, by the way, and what I'm saying, if I'm not being clear, is he talked to the team and the team said, we're going to have a meeting and all that stuff. The reason I don't believe that, number one, is because I don't think that anybody that has any idea what's going on is going to give him any information. In other words, let's say that they're planning to fire Matt LaFleur. Who could Adam Schefter talk to and what could they tell them? Do you think Adam Schefter is going to get up high enough in the ladder of Green Bay and somebody's going to be able to tell him, plans have changed, bro? No more meeting about extension. That's not going to happen, because then the news is going to hit LaFleur from behind. He's going to find out before he even has the meeting. They're not going to allow that to happen. If I had to guess, more than likely, Schefter's getting the information from somebody who got the information from Ian Rapoport. In other words, local media or something. So what's the plan with LaFleur there? Well, it sounds like they're going to have a meeting to determine if they're going to have an extent. Like, what? That's crazy. I got to tweet that out. I hate that it's this way, but, again, this is off-season stuff. This is the way you have to do things. And my advice to you if you're new to this game, pay special attention to Schefter. That dude likes to speculate while wearing his insider badge and kind of conflate the two things. And so a lot of big breaking news comes out about stuff that Schefter says as his opinion. They all probably do it to some degree, but that guy just especially annoys me with stuff that he says. So we'll see. We'll see. Again, I have no idea how this is going to go, and it's always been a possibility that he ends up staying. It kind of threw a wrench in what I was planning on doing today, although we probably should forge ahead with what that is. Packers Buckaroo, a.k.a. @PigSkinman. I know that I'm Pack Daddy, so I can't really talk, but what are we doing out here, bro? He says D in regard to my list of things. He's parroting what an agent wants out there because that's all he ever does. It's actually a pretty solid point. Because, again, the question is, who is he getting this from? He's not going to get it from the team because the team is going to be tight-lipped right now. They don't want any news getting leaked out about this meeting. It's going to be very private. He could be getting it from local media. He could be getting it from third-party sources, talking to other teams or whatever nonsense, because they do that stuff all the time, according to a source. And it's like some freaking Giants or former Giants GM or some nonsense. That's why, it's also important to hear according to a source close to the situation, because if you don't hear that, literally anybody could be a source. You're just relying on people being decent reporters to not do something like that. But, some people, I don't know. The other option, which is the most likely, and that's probably where 90% of this information comes from, is agents who want to spin. Teams also want to spin things. But again, I think the team is being tight-lipped. It's entirely possible that this is just the agent, which would make sense that it's the agent who also gave that information to Ian, right? It would also explain why it's the exact same message. But remember, Matt LaFleur is a guy looking for a job. So even if things don't work out with the Packers, the agent is going to want this out there. The last thing you want for your client is, things sucked so bad that it looks like he's not going to get it. No, it's the Packers really want to keep him. You're trying to keep the numbers up, bro. Got to pump those numbers up. He's still a coach in demand because he wants his client getting that $15 million a year coaching gig. If it doesn't work out in Green Bay, getting it somewhere else. And you want to drive the value up, not down. So that also makes a ton of sense. Not necessarily different, just kind of from a standpoint of like, where did the info come from? At the end of the day, though, the main question is it new information or the same old information or just BS information, which, it's a little bit of a combo there. But I do think that probably makes the most sense, which means we don't have any new information. So given that, and hopefully, it takes a couple, I shouldn't say hopefully, it's kind of like when you play fantasy football and, you have a player that's playing against the Packers. And it's like, I hope that sort of like, the Packers win obviously is the priority, but also sort of kind of hope my guy gets a bunch of points and whatever. You try not to do that, but you kind of do. That's how I am as a Packers podcaster, where it's like, look, I just want the best thing to happen. Also, peak drama is great in the offseason. You know what I mean? If we could drag this out a little bit, if you can give me a couple days to cover the coaching topics before you rehire Matt LaFleur, because I could use the couple days of content. Thank you very much. Especially if you're going to rehire him. I understand if you're going to fire him, then we're going to need to move on quickly. And by the way, that would be fine because that gives me plenty of content in and of itself. But if you're going to rehire him, take your time, please. Okay? Because then I have nothing for a very long time. Anyways, well, somehow we're 15 minutes into this. Why don't we take a break? When we come back, I spent a little bit of time, because I am who I am, trying to, what am I, Popeye now? Trying to sort of figure out a way to quantify coaching. Kind of like what I talked about before. It's so hard because there's not like a metric. There's no coaching EPA. And that's the gray area where I struggle. But leave it to me. I found a way. Don't worry about it. It's always going to be math, bro. You think you're in frickin' social studies class? Nope, you're right back to math class. Sorry. Sometimes we do home ec. We talk about food, but no, we're back to math. We'll take a break. We'll be right back. So to be clear, for those who I have not scared away, we're going to do some non-math things, and then I want to, at least in theory, talk about some of that stuff. We're not going to do any actual numbers, but let me start off. Patreon.com/pack_daddy. If you'd like to support the podcast, you can do so over there for as little as $1 a month. I would greatly appreciate that. As I said before, first of all, I appreciate you guys still sticking around up to this point. Some of you have already bailed. I'm guessing some, based on the comments, are planning to bail if Matt LaFleur gets rehired, so that's not great. But Randy Helling, my man, just went to check it, joined on the Robert Brooks tier. I just had the most ridiculous, like Brett Good tier, like just the most ridiculous stuff. But really appreciate you. I actually had a thing for a while where you could create your own tier. Somebody would reach out and be like, I want to donate, $3.25 a month. It's like, all right, well, if you can come up with your own, I'll let you create your own tier. So I'll just go in and create it, the Jim Smith tier at $3.50. So if you want a tier named after you, just come up with a weird number. But Randy, I appreciate you. I appreciate everybody who's signing up. And again, I have no intention of this being a downturn. I intend for this to go up. We're going to have more interaction, more music, more fun, more group stuff. We're going to be doing group mocks and everything else. So I want everybody involved. We're going to be doing some live streams. We're going to be doing all kinds of stuff. So I'm not willing to just settle for, well, it's the off season, so everything downturns. Bull crap. We're going to ramp it up, and we're going to get bigger and better and have even more fun than we had in the regular season, which, to be fair, is not that hard. It's a pretty low bar that I have to clear here for us to have more fun than we did, especially down the stretch as Packer fans. So, again, I am pleading with you, if you are not an NFL draft person, which I understand, I'm talk to anybody who is like big into the draft. It is a game changer. It sucks when football's over because it's like, oh, I got to wait until like such a long time until football's back. Bro, I'm telling you, the NFL season is an 11-month long season. And the off season is a freaking blast. Give me an opportunity to introduce you to that, because this is a massively fun. Plus all this like drama stuff. Dude, the off season is crazy for drama, because that's where guys like Schefter get in, because they have the same problem. Oh, there's no football, so what are we going to do? So they start making stuff up, and it's great. I love it. They make crap up, and then I call them liars. You freaking lying jagwad. Sometimes I say jagwad, and it gets all kinds of crazy. And I will say the other benefit of off-season stuff is because there is less, during the season, it's kind of just taking what comes at you because there's so much. It's, okay, here is the pile of news, and we're just about out of time. Have a good day. The offseason, there isn't that. I mean, sometimes there is, and it's big news, but there isn't. And so this is the time when the most amount of deep dive type things take place. And for those that do stick around through the offseason, I've had many people reach out and say this is the better content that you'll get from this podcast because of that. So I'm giving you my hard sell here, guys. I'm telling you. But I appreciate all of you. I appreciate the fact that so many people are starting to sign back up over on the Patreons. Really appreciate it. Again, $1 a month is nothing. I promise you. You won't miss it. Aside from that monthly charge, your wife's going to say, do we still need this? What is this? What is this charge for $1? I don't know. This guy said I have to do it. You'll be all right. Put your foot down, all right? You'll be all right. All right, so where to even begin? So I guess I hate doing this whole live update thing because I don't want the whole show to be, here, now a new update. Oh, we got another one. Oh. Freaking is what it is, all right? We'll deal with the consequences tomorrow, I guess. But Ian Rapoport did say he expects there to be a deal done between the Packers and Matt LaFleur. Again, I don't see this as massively instructive. I think right now where it stands, me personally, I'm, 60-40. We probably need to look for a new coach. I think in reality where the team is, it's closer to 60-40. We end up keeping Matt LaFleur. That's kind of where I'm at right now. We'll see how this thing parses out as we go along. All right. I thought that said Keyshawn Nixon. Easton Butler's shooting out all the signings and whatnot. I don't know if we'll do that today. We might just save that for tomorrow. But I thought it said Keyshawn Nixon. I was like, wait a minute, what? So let's start with this. As I said, I am very different than what you'll find with a lot of the national media people. Shut up. Stupid YouTube just starts popping up all the time. You want to watch this guy speak to Steven Seagal? Yes, I do, but not right now. A lot of people thrive in the speculative space, right? They don't like the concrete data because it kind of just boxes them into like, okay, I guess this is it. They like to float around and do whatever they want. This is crazy, and this should have been, he's the greatest, and this is ever, blah, 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 blah. I don't like that. I don't like not having something concrete to grab onto to be able to say, I can't know anything 100%, but based on the available information, I think this is the most reasonable conclusion to come to. And here's how I came to that conclusion. Here's all the work I did. Let me know what you think. It's very difficult, and actually, I mean, this is, and we'll get to this, this is common in things like statistics, especially, people will point out like, well, that's not a QB stat, that's a team stat, and that's always going to be the case, and that's difficult, especially in the NFL, because it's such a team sport. It's very, very, very hard to isolate anything to a particular, like baseball, it's relatively easy to do that. I'm sure there's some things that are difficult that could be team related, but not really. I mean, it's very much a bunch of individuals doing their individual job. The pitcher is the pitcher. The only real difference is like who you're pitching against, but that's pretty easy to adjust for. That's why baseball, by the way, is very much an analytics-driven sport. Not that I pay attention to it, but it's like, anytime you even try to do football analytics, they're like, well, baseball is 50 steps ahead of you. They already do X, Y, and Z, but here's why you can't do it, kind of thing. But basketball, similarly, what is your rate from the free throw line? You know what I mean? Like that is a very concrete 100% stat that there's really nothing else to factor in. Even if you're looking at, 3-pointers and stuff, a lot of that you can isolate to the individual. But even quarterback stats that you can try as hard as you can to isolate down, on every single play, you have people rushing you. It depends on the play call. It depends on the depth of the pass. It depends on the wind conditions. It depends on the pass rush and whether you're running for your life. Are you in the pocket, out of the pocket, under pressure, not under pressure, play action, no play action? Is it a blitz? Is it, zone? Is it man? There's so many variables. And so you see things, I think it's like EPA, where, it's primarily attributed to quarterbacks, and that's probably the best because it's one of the things you can kind of do. But you'll look at certain things or what is it? Total points is a metric used by Pro Football Reference, and essentially it's you take a thing like EPA, and then you just try to split it up and give it to each individual person. Well, you can't really do that. You can do that to the best of your ability to try to come up to some kind of a iffy thing, but at the end of the day, everything is somewhat of a team sport, and it's so hard to isolate anything. Micah Parsons with a very strong endorsement saying Matt LaFleur was a big part of the reason he wanted to come to Green Bay. That is a very strong endorsement, by the way. Let me just pause and read this because it's relevant. Micah Parsons says, I've had my fair share of coaches and people around this league that I've been around. Matt is one of the best guys and people as a person I've been around since I've been in this league. I reached out to him when I started seeing this, and I said, man, when I agreed to come here, you were part of the reason why I came here. I want you a part of this, and I love you. I think you're a great coach. He appreciated those words, and we had a brief conversation. Matt I think he's a great guy. He cares so much. He cares so much about the players. I don't think people realize that. And you can get spoiled with good coaches and good people, and you don't realize it until they're gone. I don't want to be at that point where we realize, damn, we let such a great coach go, because at one point the players got to, you talk about do your job, you talk about coach. The team put up how many points did they score? 27 points in a playoff game. I always told you if my team puts up 21 in a game, we should win that game, which, is a good mentality to have as a defensive player. You can't blame an offense that puts up nearly 30. You can blame the offense for some stuff, but in the totality, but he's talking about player accountability. And I think all of this is entirely fair. I again, not to have a mid-podcast here. We're already talking about something, but, again, at the end of the day, this goes back to what I said kind of mid-season, where I said that I would, walk into the locker room, I would hand Matt a slip of paper, and it would say, "You're fired." And I would announce to the players that Matt LaFleur will no longer be with us, and it's your fault. Because that is kind of the point. Like, when I look at Matt LaFleur, I can't really identify anything that he's doing wrong. The only metric I can use is the players don't want to play for you. They'll say all the nice words after the fact, and I can't come down hard on the guy that played his heart out the entire season, but I can point to a lot of guys that didn't do that. And, the words, no matter what they would say about Matt LaFleur, would feel kind of empty because at the end of the day, they're not getting it done. You know what I mean? So it is a ringing endorsement that he is a nice guy, but I could also hear these types of words being said towards Rich Bisaccia. You know what I mean? I believe everything. I believe he's a very good coach. I believe he's very meticulous. I believe he comes up with great game plans. I believe that he's brilliant. I believe I'm one of the people that believes he's an elite play caller, which is a very debated thing that I don't think should be, but a lot of Packer fans don't want to believe that. I believe all that stuff. My thoughts about where to go as a head coach has nothing to do with any of that. It has to do with, I don't know what else to say when the players won't play for you. That's essentially it. Anyways, this guy's staring at me, keeps asking me if he wants me to listen to him talk to Steven Seagal. I said, yes, not right now. Stop looking at me. What are you looking at? The point is, and it's actually a decent segue, when it comes to coaching, it's very similar to that, but just like on crack. It's closer to like trying to determine how good a coach is based on the team is kind of like trying to determine how good your guard is based on the production of the quarterback. Because, there's going to be some correlation there, although there's so much noise in there that it's basically going to be useless. It's really difficult to be able to look at team data and pick out what is the coach. And we pretend that it's easier, and we can look at the stuff around the edges that we do actually have metrics on, like, well, look at his record in challenges and look at wasted timeouts and things. I don't know. First of all, I promise you, I'm going to go look into these things, and Matt LaFleur is not going to be as bad as you think he is. And that's going to annoy me because I spent a lot of time looking at stats that really mean very little to me in the grand scheme of things, and then it's not going to be as bad as I thought, and it's just going to be annoying that I wasted that time. There are metrics you can look at, decisions that were made, although even that is very difficult. Like, what is a good decision? Well, we know what good decisions are. Well, not really. We know that over a period of time, this decision tends to be the most successful. That doesn't mean in every situation that you should do that, because it treats all situations the same. Like every fourth down with 2 minutes left, blah, blah, blah. It's all fourth and two with two. They're all the same situation. No, they're not. The quality of play of the offense and the defense, the flow of the game, all that all goes into account. That isn't taken into account statistically. So we kind of know, but we don't know as well as we think we know. I'm kind of torn on where to start here, and part of me thinks that maybe we should do half of this and then pause and kind of get caught up on some of the news because there is quite a bit of it. Let's do that because this is going to be kind of a lot, and I do want to get some more detail. So let me at least today explain to you kind of my thought process moving forward, because it's an important question and I don't want to just be flippant. I don't want to be flippantly pro or anti LaFleur. So this is kind of how I approach things, and I looked at it and I said, I don't know exactly what to do. But again, kind of going back to what I said, nothing is 100% Matt LaFleur, but everything is some percent Matt LaFleur. Everything on some level is a reflection of Matt LaFleur. And so it kind of got me thinking a little bit in a weird way, because this is just how my brain works, trying to find connections and whatnot. It made me think of like the difference between physics and chemistry. That's why I'm a big physics guy, because it's very easy to understand. You pick up a ball, you drop the ball, that's physics. Chemistry is much more complicated. A better example is like black holes. Trying to understand how good a coach is is kind of like trying to understand black holes. The reason that I say that is because we actually know a decent amount about black holes, despite the fact that we cannot see black holes. Actually, maybe this is what made me think of it. I just saw recently something on social media where they were showing a black hole. And the interesting thing about it is you can't see the black hole. It's just black on top of black. The way that you can infer or see that there's a black hole is that stars are orbiting nothing. In other words, what we know about black holes is inferred from all the things around it. The way light bends, the way stars orbit. And to some degree, even though there are some stats that we can look at, and that's the part where I kind of want to go do a little bit better research on, so I have that as well. I think a lot of this and a lot of my thought process on coaching and what makes a good coach or what makes a well-coached team is kind of like astrophysics. It's kind of like how we study black holes. Of course, I went to AI to make sure I'm on the right track, and it gave me some other examples, not that it's necessary, but I like to do this for reference. And by the way, if any of this is your realm and some of these terms are incorrect, I apologize. It's just the term we're going to use today to help understand concepts. It is what it is. I'm not an astrophysicist. But what we're essentially talking about are called latent variables. It's something that is real, and it can't be directly measured, but can only be inferred. So things like intelligence. You can't see intelligence. You can infer intelligence through testing. Seismology when it comes to earthquakes. We can't see tectonic plates moving in real time. What we see are microtremors, fault slippage, pressure accumulation, and aftershock patterns. And so we are going to infer that there is stress buildup, i.e. an impending earthquake is coming. Economic. There's no way to directly measure confidence or fear in the market. We infer from things like velocity of money, yield curve inversions, consumer behavior, and risk premiums. These are all the experts that are on TV saying that things are about to be really good or things are about to be really bad, and they're looking at markers to infer what is happening, what's about to happen, etc. So the bottom line is we understand these concepts. You can probably think of 10 examples on your own of things like this. Perhaps with your spouse. I can't know if I'm in trouble because she won't tell me, but I can infer it from her tone, etc. You know what I mean? So I think with coaching and with the NFL in general, I mean, there's always some level of inference because it doesn't matter. Because they're so tied together. Some things are better, like quarterbacks I think are a little easier to isolate. Some things you can't isolate and there's so much noise, you're kind of just relying on inference. And so in my mind, coaching is very inference-based. And so you're looking at larger patterns in a larger system to determine the quality of the coach. And so, again, I don't want to necessarily go through that because there's the inference-based things, and then there are the actual statistics that, again, I want to do a better job of making sure I have pinned down because some people actually track this stuff. For example, like wasted timeouts or challenges or penalties and what kind of penalties and when do these penalties happen and all these different kinds of things. But the ultimate goal is the same thing I always do. Because I can't help but be sort of a numbers person and turn everything into that kind of a thing, is to set up a standard first, then apply it to the Packers, and then see what the result is, rather than assuming that I know what the result is. Even though I kind of have a feeling that I know what the result is going to be, I want to step back, I want to make sure that the process is as good as I can get it, and then go through and try to infer, primarily, whether or not this team is a well-coached team or not. And again, it's kind of a weird way to do this because I decided not to answer the question today, but it's at least a decent enough thought experiment because, again, we get too caught up in automatically judging. And as I talked about yesterday, and I already forgot all the fake terms and everything, but the need to say something is wrong, package up all my anger and all the things that I noticed, put them in a nice little package and smash it in Matt LaFleur's face or Jordan Love's face or whoever it is you feel like hating. Brian Gutekunst, maybe you split it into 3 parts and smash them all. whatever. I just want to avoid that temptation to just immediately assign blame. And I want to, first of all, try to understand things because I think it's interesting and I think it's a fun revelation. It's always great. It's cool to be in year 7 of a podcast and kind of have a moment. Even on basic stuff that most people are like, yeah, you didn't know that? It's like, I freaking didn't. I never thought of it. I just hasn't crossed my mind. Ari Murov, in fact, and we'll probably talk about this in the next segment. Ari Murov just did a thing about Green Bay and Matt LaFleur and provided a couple details. We're still in the we don't know what's going to happen phase, which was essentially what he said, but provided some interesting details. But even he was talking about, we talk about and we know about player contracts. We know generally how these things play out, how they are negotiated, betting on yourself or this or that or all these different angles. Because we go through it and we know exactly how much the player makes and we know what the agent is saying and we know what, it's very public and all these different things. We know the team's salary cap. But as far as coaching negotiations, I mean, they have similar representation. I think he's like athletes first is who Matt LaFleur is with, which is a lot of coaches and a ton of players, including I think Aaron Rodgers is still with athletes first. But it's one of those interesting things that it's like, I never thought of that. Yeah. How do these go? How does it go with a coach negotiating a contract? And, these are pretty rare things to sit here and say, okay, here's how much they want. What if the team likes the coach but doesn't like the salary? Would they actually let a guy walk based on that? I guess there has to be a number. And then what happens? Do you let him walk? Do you actually try to trade him, which is an extremely rare thing in the NFL? And then how much could he be worth in a trade and who would trade with us? And how would that work in terms of the 3 parties needing to be on the same page? 4 if you say coach and agent, but we call that 1 page, I suppose. But anywho, again, I found this kind of interesting and I thought it was an interesting way to try to start thinking about things. And again, the coach is a big one. And it gets even worse if you start talking about offensive coordinator or, wide receiver coach. The more you go down the ladder, the more it's like, I don't know, signal to noise if there's anything that I can parse from this, depending on what you're looking at, I suppose. But again, even when it comes to players, PFF grades are always going to have some residual. Like I've said before, a wide receiver gets a 60 grade. Because what if the quarterback just airmails the ball over his head all day long? Are you telling me PFF wouldn't give him a better grade if it was a more accurate pass and he caught it and then broke a tackle and went for a touchdown? Of course, they get a massive grade, but that's the quarterback's fault. So the quarterback is impacting his grade. Not to say that PFF is doing anything wrong. It's just something that you can't untie from. There's no way to fully untie from that. Dolphins want to interview the Lions defensive coordinator, Kelvin Shepard. That's kind of shocking. I thought their last defensive coordinator was kind of iffy. Now you're going, we're just going right. Okay, well, fine, good, great. Keep poaching them. I like it. Have you considered poaching from the Bears by chance? Get some of those freaking guys out of there. The Lions are already poached, okay? They're dead. Nothing left. Go steal from Ben Johnson a little bit. Freaking Jagoffs. The only good thing about them getting what they're getting is hopefully people see the success and go, that team is massively overperforming and just poach the living hell out of that coaching staff. Anyways, so I think I've explained that. Why don't we take a break? What I want to do is pull back from this, go back and look at some of the news because there has been a decent amount of news. We'll do that. And then tomorrow, pending big news, which it sounds like there might not be now because, there's the meeting and then there's the negotiation, which could take. Although, again, you would want this to go quick because if the negotiation doesn't go well, you don't want this to be a month later and all the coaches are gone. There's this constant, incessant talk about Harbaugh. And as much as I'm not a fan of that, he's not going to be around long. So gotta speed this up. All right, let's take a break. We'll be back. All right, so quite a bit of news and notes here. Why don't we start with the Matt LaFleur stuff since that's what we're talking about most recently. Again, Ari Murov, I won't play what he said. It was very long, but his comments essentially were that this thing, first of all, he said this thing is far, far from being over. That is quote unquote. Although he did frame it similar to what a lot of other people are, which is, we're not letting him go outright, but we need to find a price that makes sense. So, look, first of all, if that really is the situation, assuming policy isn't like kind of on the fence, like but I don't know how you could be on the fence with a coach. He's either the guy you want and you pay him, or he's not. You know what I mean? I don't understand the mentality of, he's okay at a certain price if we can get a discount, but I'm not paying him XYZ, And I also don't understand saying, yes, we believe he is a legitimate Super Bowl caliber coach that can get us all the way there, but we're not paying him as such. And so, you know what I mean? Like, because Matt LaFleur is not going to ask for $25 million. So I don't know. It's the more I think about it, the more it feels kind of like a done deal. Because again, if you believe he's worth keeping, then you're going to pay him. And so the other thing Ari Mirov talked about a little bit was the price tag. This is a while ago now when I watched it, so I don't remember the exact coach, but there's another coach that fits the prototype very closely in terms of like where they're at in their careers or whatever, and he just got paid. And so Ari kind of looked at it and said, look, Ben Johnson just got paid, I think he said, $12 million, $13 million a year. He's a first-year head coach. Somebody else got a similar deal as a first-year head coach. And so the thought is, okay, it's going to be more than that. First of all, the expectation is that the belief right now is that Matt LaFleur is making less than $10 million a year. And this person, this other coach who is in a similar path, who's had a similar path as far as like how long they've been coaching, et cetera, signed for somewhere in the ballpark of $14 to $15 million per year. And they have the same agent. So the expectation is that Matt LaFleur is going to be asking for $14 to $15 million. And again, allow me to come back to this. If you don't want him, don't try to keep him. If you want him, then you pay him $15 million. I mean, I guess there's nothing wrong with negotiating and trying to save a few pennies when you can and see if you can talk him down or something. I don't know, but look, I mean, if he's worth 15, if that's the market rate, then pay him 15. I don't know what to tell you. Now, I'm not going to discount it because it's kind of what everybody is talking about right now. The idea that they may not reach an agreement and therefore he could end up going somewhere else. I don't understand that at all. I understand in sort of a general business sense that makes sense, but not in this industry. In the industry where you are trying to get the best of the best. And Matt's either that or he's not. I mean, in terms of, what, obviously you can't, let's say such and such over, and let's say McVay is the best of the best. Well, you can't get McVay. But, again, if he's the guy, then you pay him. So be very interesting to see how that goes. They also did talk about the possibility that if they don't come to some kind of an agreement, that they could end up trading him. This is obviously a pretty rare thing that happens. Probably the most popular example of this would be Bill Belichick back in 2000 from the Jets to the Patriots. The Patriots sent the Jets a first, fourth, and seventh round pick as compensation. That's obviously massive. Then there's John Gruden. That was 2002. Raiders to the Buccaneers. They traded him for 2 first-round picks, 2 second-round picks, and $8 million in cash. Herm Edwards from the Jets to the Chiefs. The Jets released him to the Kansas City Chiefs. The Chiefs sent a 4th-round pick. Bruce Arians was traded from the Cardinals to the Buccaneers. Tampa Bay sent a 6th-round pick plus a 7th-round pick to Arizona as compensation. And then the most recent and pretty large trade was Sean Payton in 2023 from the Saints to the Broncos. Compensation included a 2023 first-round pick and a 2024 second-round pick from Denver, plus the Saints received Denver's 2024 third-round pick. So they got a first, a second, and sent back a third. Now, Matt LaFleur does not have Gruden, Belichick, Sean Payton kind of mojo. You know what I mean? So we wouldn't be getting any first-round picks. I know there's a lot of people, we'll trade them, get our 2 first back. We're not getting 1 first back. I don't think we get a second for him. If I had to guess, it would be kind of like the by the way, Packers traded Mike Holmgren to the Seahawks in 99. That was for a second-round pick. You could maybe say that that's similar, but Mike Holmgren obviously was much more, he had a little bit more under his belt at the time. But you're probably looking at something closer to a mid-round pick, possibly up to a 2, but let's call it 3rd, 4th. I mean, I don't know. That's just sort of off the top of my head anticipation. So don't go getting all excited about 2 first-round picks and all that stuff and whatnot, because that's never going to happen. I mean, we're super unlikely to trade him to begin with, but if we did, it would not be a massive haul. The other thing, kind of a minor thing, reading tea leaves a little bit, but it's kind of an interesting observation. Peter Bukowski noticed it first. He says, first, John Harbaugh was going to wait to do interviews. Then Adam Schefter spent the weekend stumping for him in Green Bay on all shows. Reports come out Green Bay is going to work out a deal with Matt LaFleur. Next day, Harbaugh is in close talks with teams. Wow. So, again, the reason I say reading tea leaves is because I don't know. Everything is so vague and everything is so whatever, but this is kind of putting the picture together of what's probably happening. In other words, Adam Schefter is talking a lot about Green Bay and all these different things. The assumption is this is the agent kind of putting in work. These are all these different, it's all these weird little angles and everything. But the obvious thought here is this is a sign, right, that Harbaugh wanted to be in Green Bay. There was even a report that came out at one point saying, him saying he wants $20 million and all these different things. That's fake. That's not true. It's whatever, right? So the feeling is he's pushing real hard to be the coach in Green Bay, and everything else is on hold. And then suddenly, Matt LaFleur maybe has a meeting, whether it's a preemptive meeting or whatever that thing happened to be, this weird Schefter tweet. And the idea is they're going to try to work something out, and Harbaugh has kind of moved on and is now in close talks with the Giants or whatever. So again, there's multiple levels of speculation here, but I think when you try to piece this picture together, it just seems more and more and more likely that Matt LaFleur will be coming back. Again, if we're doing the thing, I'm whatever I said, 60-40 that we probably need a new coach would be the best direction. We're probably, I don't know, in its totality now. If you had to put me on the spot, 80-20 now with just the stuff that I've seen today since I've started the podcast. But again, that a lot of that is how much of it is real, how much of it is our interpretations of things being correct as opposed to either misunderstanding or whatever, But we'll see. We'll see how this all pans out and what ends up happening. Moving off of the coach thing for just a moment. Some other Packers news here. Packers signed kicker Lucas Haversick, tackle Brett Banks, defensive lineman Dante Barnett, guard Carson Barnhart, defensive tackle Anthony Campbell, tight end McAllen Castles, tackle Dalton Cooper, tight end Drake Dabney, defensive lineman James Esther, cornerback Tyron Herring, linebacker Jamon Johnson, running back Damian Martinez, safety Mark Perry, wide receiver Will Shepard, running back Pierre Strong Jr., and tight end Messiah Swinson to reserve futures contracts. Some of these guys you may remember, some of them maybe not quite as much. This is, for those that don't know or don't remember, a very, not common. I mean, it's what every team does. Around this time of year, once your season is done, you get into the whole reserves futures thing. It's kind of the first off-season move, aside from, saying goodbye to some coaches if and when that ends up happening. This is kind of that time of year. It's kind of a way of claiming certain players. And in a way, it's kind of like a way to re-sign your practice squad. So your practice squad, you're giving these guys basically a 1-year contract. At the end of the season, you can sign a group of people to these reserves futures contracts, and it just means that once the new league year starts, you're still here. Because that's a big tipping point when the new league year starts. Guys that are not under contract are now free agents, and that's that whole fun. By the way, I didn't even mention that. Free agency is a lot of fun, along with the draft. As far as the offseason. What the heck kind of a TV show is that? Sorry, I'm watching the Steelers game, and the only thing I've seen so far is commercials. I keep not paying attention to the game. And so it's kind of a weird little nuanced thing. I mean, even the phrasing kind of explains it a little bit. Reserve, future, reserve kind of being the operative here. You're kind of claiming somebody and putting them on a list, even though they're not functionally on your team, because they don't count toward your 90 they don't count toward your 53-man roster. They would effectively be put on the 90-man roster. However, the 90-man roster doesn't kick in until the start of the new league year. So it's kind of like a placeholder. Once you get eliminated, you're allowed to do this. You can claim certain people, set them off to the side, and that basically means, hey, as long as you're on this list, once the new league year kicks in, you now come into the fold, you're on our team, and you're a part of our 90-man roster. You're essentially claiming exclusive rights to that player, employment and negotiating, even though they are not functionally on your roster yet. And there's no point in not doing it immediately because you can swap this out anytime. So you grab the guys to kind of fill up that 90-man roster, and then we can tweak it. But up until that point, again, these are kind of the guys. So as of right now, these would be the guys, and we got to figure out the rest of our 53 as well. But free agency and all that fun stuff, we'll kind of fill in some of that stuff. But once the new league year comes in, these would be additional guys brought in. I'm not going to go through all of them right now, but we'll kind of mention some little notes on these guys at another time. But again, this is just kind of general news and notes for the moment. I think I will. I don't think I had anything else major. I'll add in one note, and this probably is not a super interesting the heck is playing in my ears? Consolation for those of you that want something different at head coach, but Tyler Dunn wrote, Matt LaFleur of the Packers and the art of a choke. If the organization doesn't move on from this head coach now, then win. Whew. Brutal. Maybe we'll look at that tomorrow. We'll see. If Matt LaFleur does not move on, remember, we're probably still going to be in this whole looking for coaches thing. It's possible we don't. It's possible Jeff Hafley stays exactly where he is, and he doesn't really want to move on from a lot of his coaches, which I think probably might happen. It's possible that some of our other guys get hired away. Maybe DeMarcus Covington is looking for a defensive coordinator job, although I don't know that anybody was necessarily stupendous, but it's possible. There's also possibilities about offense. A lot of people have talked about, okay, fine, if you're keeping Matt LaFleur, that's fine, but you need to start finding some new offensive pieces to fill in this, that, or the other. No real reason to believe that would be a stipulation from policy. In fact, I think if you're going to put trust in a coach, that you should trust him to fill out his own thing, but maybe put some pressure on him to be like, this better not be your freaking best friend thing, and be very serious about making sure that you have the best possible candidates or coaches in their positions. And then the big one, presumably, and this may not happen and it would be frustrating for all of us if it didn't, but the big one would be special teams coordinator. Now, again, don't expect the Packers to roll out the frickin' Brinks truck after they just did that for this guy and it didn't work. But it's still something that we potentially could be looking at in the coming days. So the first shoe to drop is going to be Matt LaFleur. I'm guessing he'll be back. If he's back, then it'll be kind of a matter of he has to go through and start making decisions on coaches. And some of that's going to depend, obviously, on Halfley and whether or not he gets hired away, blah, 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 blah. But the point is, we're going to have a lot of coaching conversations over the next, month or so. They're going to try to get this settled as fast as possible. And shoes are going to start dropping real quick here, but still plenty to talk about. All right, I got to go do Packernet After Dark. You all have a great rest of your day. I will talk to you tomorrow. Have a good one. Bye-bye.